All right, another night game, the one that we'll be in attendance for, Dalton.
Here we go.
The Big Ten championship game between Oregon and between Penn State. 8 p.m. Eastern Time on CBS. Really playoff implications. Both teams are in. Again, like the SEC, though, winner will get a first-round bye in the playoffs. So Oregon, obviously, will be the number 1 overall seed if they win this game with the only undefeated team left in college football. Penn State would likely be either the number 1 or number 2 seed in the playoff with a win, but probably still be among the top 8 seeds, right, with a loss. I don't think they'll fall out of hosting a playoff game with a loss.
Close. There'll be some arguments. There'll be some arguments because you got to remember Penn State, not a whole lot of great wins on their schedule. I talked about there could be kind of a 5-team race for 4 spots. I wouldn't be that shocked to see Penn State on the road.
It would be tough, though, because right now they're probably, listen, we're recording this before the playoff rankings come out, but they're probably going to be number 3 in the country.
Yeah. And there's
a far way to fall
and not only first round bye. You just mentioned it. If it goes the way that we think it's going to go, and Georgia beats Texas, the winner of this game is going to be number 1. So even if it's Penn State,
you think so?
If Georgia beats Texas, there's nobody else in their way.
I think Georgia should be above Penn State probably. I don't know. It's close. It's close. That's close. That's close. Yeah,
you still only have Penn State 1 loss.
Yeah, that's true.
To Ohio State, we were there. But I mean, I think it's a good argument that Penn State could be number 1.
It could, no, absolutely. At least number 2.
If Texas wins and then Penn State wins, I think it does go to Texas. Yeah, but same. Georgia's a little shakier because I don't know if they'll have a 2-loss team number 1 up there.
That's true. They probably would give it a Penn
Also,
State,
a weird optic thing there for that. You know how they are with optics.
Oh yeah, it's very important to them, obviously. But Dawn, these two did not play in the regular season. Oregon is searching for their Big Ten title in its inaugural season as a member of the conference, while Penn State looking for their first Big Ten title in 8 years. Also, the last time Penn State played in the Big Ten title game was back 8 years ago. I was actually at that game, the Wisconsin-Penn State game. It was a very, very fun game. Went down to the wire. But now Penn State looking for their first Big Ten title since I believe my senior year in high school was the last time they won it. So you have the Penn State offense in this game. What should we be looking out for in the Nittany Lions of the ball?
And you act like that's so long ago.
I'm old, man. I'm an old man now. I'm 26 now. I got to pay for my own life insurance now and everything.
I'm 30. You're not allowed to say that. Jeez. Okay, so I got to be honest. It's weird because of the way their schedule was. It feels like we haven't talked enough about Oregon this year, doesn't it? And I think the one thing maybe we haven't talked about enough is how darn good this front 7 is. You know, they're one of only 2 teams, along with Texas, with a top 10 defensive line grade and a top 10 linebacker grade. Oregon and Texas, and obviously they're both playing this weekend.
Are they like top 5 in coverage grade too?
Oregon's defense is something we have not talked about enough this year. All the talk is always Dylan Gabriel and who's winning the Heisman. Yeah, with Muhammad and those guys on the back end. They're I mentioned, in our last episode about 3-layered defenses, and there's not very many of them. Kind of forgot that Oregon's one of them too. And I'm worried about this front when you talk about Derek Harmon, Jamari Caldwell inside. You got Jordan Birch. You got Mateo Uiagalelei. You got Bryce Betcher at linebacker. You got Jeffrey Bassa at linebacker. They got monsters on the inside. These aren't just good players. These are spectacular players. I mean, you look at just their D-line. Derek Harmon, 83.2. Caldwell, 80.3. Birch, 78.9. Uiagalelei, 77.8. Tatum Tuioti as well. He's another really good player, 75.2. This is a problem. And I think the thing I'm most concerned with for Penn State's kind of got an average-ish offensive line. They haven't been bad. They lost 3 starters to the NFL this past year. Both their guards stayed, but those are 3 really good starters. Talk about Old Fashanu doing great things with the Jets now. 57th in the FBS in offensive line grade this year. And against some of the better D-lines on their schedule, and I certainly think back to the Ohio State game, pass protection has not been great. I know Aller's been good under pressure, passing grade right around 70 under pressure, which is really good, but I'm a little worried, especially on the interior against Harmon and Caldwell, about the pass protection and how this offensive line is going to hold up. Because Penn State, as great as Tyler Warren has been and as good as Drew Aller has been, there's not a ton of margin for error in this offense, and if you're not blocking people like they didn't in the Ohio State game when we were there, you kind of lose that margin for error. I think Derek Harmon, especially as the nation's leading defensive tackle in pressures, that's the part I'm worried about. Because if they get pushed inside and the receivers, you already know their wide receiver problems at Penn State, if they can't separate in time for Aller to get the ball out quickly and it's just all Tyler Warren all the time against an elite defense, that might not work in this game. So I'm looking in the trenches at Penn State's O-line and going, you know what? this is the one defensive line they've played this year.
Yeah.
That's somewhat comparable to the Ohio State one. They need to be better in this game than they were in that game.
And really, it's the opposite for Penn State. And the other side of the ball is, can the D-line dominate against Oregon? He's especially lethal when defenses give him time back there. But when you speed him up, he's a little more average. So when he's kept clean, 9th best passing grade in college football. When he's under pressure, 38th. When he's not blitzed, he's a 90.7 passing grade in college football, which actually is a lot higher than 50. I think that's a typo for me right there. But when he's blitzed, 46th best passing grade. So when he's kept clean and when he's not blitzed, he is really, really good. But when he's blitzed and when he's under pressure, more average. Not bad, but he's more average in college football right now. So I think Penn State's pass rush needs to be really good. And for good reason. They've been the strength of the team right now this year. They're 8th in pass rush grade with an 87.5 pass rush grade. They're 10th in pressure rate, 39%. 3rd in knockdown rate, which is sacks or hits, at 19%. They also blitz at a top 30 rate in the country at about 42%. They really need to get after Dylan Gabriel in this game, because otherwise, I don't know if Penn State's got the secondary. It's a very good secondary, but I don't know if they got the secondary to keep up with these weapons and giving Dylan Gabriel time back there. Abdul Carter especially probably has to have a really good game. He's a star of Penn State's defense. He is a finalist for the Bednarik Award, which is given to the best defensive player in college football. He's currently the number 5 prospect in the NFL draft, according to our big board right now, the number 1 edge defender as well. Oregon's pass protection has been above average this year. They're right now 43rd in pass blocking grade, but really their 2 tackles in Josh Connerly Jr. and in Johnny Cornelius have been outstanding. As a duo, they're 14th in pass blocking grade in the country. So if Penn State does not dominate up front, I really think the Nittany Lions will have a lot of trouble containing what's been one of the most prolific offenses that we have in college football.
Yeah, no, for sure. And hold on, what a fun matchup that's going to be, Carter versus those 2 guys wherever he moves around. And we could see him moving around on stunts and things of that nature over the center. And you know, we remember earlier in the year that Oregon having issues with stunts and things on the interior of their offensive line. That's a bigger question. I think Zane Durant on the inside could have a big impact too. I think the thing for me on both sides of the ball is we have seen Oregon struggle once they get down to the red zone as well. Okay, so I just pulled it up now. Penn State is 14th in offensive grade in the red zone. Oregon's 48th. And earlier in the year it was a lot lower than that. So maybe they're starting to figure it out here. But I think there's a big premium in this game that when you get in the red zone and you get your opportunities, you better put 7 on the board. I think especially if you're Oregon, you keep kicking field goals, I think you play at Penn State's pace at that point. I don't think Penn State wants this game to get above 24 or maybe even 27 points in there. I don't think they're going to score a ton of points in this game. So if Oregon finishes drives, I think they could not run away with it, but really have control of this game. But I think that's another big thing that I've watched all year is they've had issues. Once they get down in the red zone and those big plays kind of get away from them a little bit, it becomes a grind. And you remember the Wisconsin game. Just didn't finish drives. Even earlier in the year in the Michigan State game, and I know the score was lopsided, they didn't finish drives in that game. And it's been a little bit ugly in the red zone for Oregon. That's something I'm looking for. Can they put up 7 or 3 when they get down there?
Yeah, so just to update, I did screw up that graph right there. Dylan Gabriel is 6th when he's not blitzed this year. So 6th when he's not blitzed, and again, he's 9th when he's kept clean versus 46th best grade when he is blitzed and 38th best grade when he's under pressure.
And the other thing I wonder is Tom Allen, when he blitzes, usually goes man-to-man.
Yeah.
Can they hold up out there in man-to-man against Tez Johnson and Evan Stewart and Trayshawn Holden? Because it's not an easy 3. Those are 3 guys with some serious feet.
Especially Tez Johnson in the slot as well. A.J. Harris for Penn State's by far the best coverage defender. He's an outside corner. So he will be handling probably Evan Stewart or Trayshawn Holden, whereas Tez Johnson, you gotta really make sure that you have a hold of that guy because he can really be a dangerous player.
And we saw Ohio State beat them on the perimeter too, where they got in some tempo and they beat them on the perimeter and they made them tackle in open space, and it was kind of shaky at times.
Yeah, absolutely. So ultimately, Dolan, who will win the Big Ten championship game between Oregon and Penn State?
I think the Ducks just have a little bit more. They have a few more answers. If this becomes a defensive game, I think Penn State stands a better chance, but I still think Oregon's defense might step up and just out Penn State, right? I think with Penn State, it's just a little thin on weaponry for me. Yeah. And I don't know how much I trust their run game in this spot and how much I trust those wide receivers. It just feels like if you can find a way to not let Tyler Warren get 120, 130 yards, Penn State doesn't have a whole lot of other answers. If this gets to be a low-scoring, really ugly game, Penn State's got a shot, but I'm taking Oregon 27-19.
I got Oregon as well, 30-24. Hate to break the hearts of my family, who will also be coming up to Cincinnati. We're all going to the game. We're obviously going to be in the press box, so I can't be cheering in the press box, but they're all going to the game as well. So it'll be a very fun game, but I am picking Oregon, unfortunately. In this game, 30.
They just have a little more, right? I think just a little bit more.
Don, I'll say it right now, they're the most complete team in college football. I was looking at it. I was looking defensively and offensively, saying, okay, where is the weakness for Oregon? Like every other team in the country, Ohio State, offensive line, Texas, Quinn Ewers, right? You look at a lot of these other schools like Georgia, the weaponry. Oregon is like, all right, what's the weakness? They don't have a true glaring hole.
It feels like it hasn't been said at all because it seems like us. I wanted to say the media, but we're part of that. It feels like everybody's just finding an excuse for the best team not to be Oregon. At what point do we just go, maybe they're just the best team?
Yeah.
And we can argue about the SEC and the rest of the Big Ten and Ohio State and whatever they're doing and whoever other Cinderella, but maybe they're just the best team.
What's their kryptonite? I couldn't really think of it.
If I had to pick one, and it's getting picky, it's red zone. Yeah. I think it's finishing drives and Dylan Gabriel throwing into tight windows down. But it's not
I even looked at that.
But when I look at other teams, like if you ask me Penn State, I go, oh, they're receivers. Like, that's not as bad. Like, that's a fixable thing. There are other teams that are short on talent. As far as talent goes, no, there's no weakness.
Then I was looking at, too, like, even the red zone, I think their touchdown percentage in the red zone is still, like, top 25 in the country.
Yeah.
So it's like...
I think it's gotten better as the year has gone on.
Yeah.
If they have fully fixed that now and that's fixed, if we see that in this game, I think we'll be sitting here on Sunday going, yeah, they're the favorite. It's like, them.
Simply put, this is why they're undefeated.
Yeah.
Like, this is the most complete team in college football right now. Now, are they going to run away and win the national title? I don't think so, but I think you could say right now they are the most complete team in the nation.
Right.
So,
and last year we got to a point where, it was kind of the same thing with Michigan. It was, okay, when's this going to go wrong? And then you kind of actually look at them and you go,
might not just go wrong.
They were the most complete team.
Yeah.
And Oregon, I don't think it's to that extent because that was a historically good defense last year that Michigan had, but we might just be getting close to that point with Oregon without really realizing it in real time.
Yeah, I think, listen, Penn State's pass rush could present some problems, especially with Zane Durant on the interior there, but I still think it won't be enough. I think Oregon will survive this game and head into the playoffs with an undefeated record and as the clear number one team going into that playoff as well. So both have Oregon beating Penn State in the Big Ten championship game. Hey, thanks for watching another episode of the PFF College Football Show. Please make sure you guys subscribe to the channel.
Also, subscribe to PFF Plus at subscribe.pff.com for all of the same data and grades that we use in our show, plus fantasy tools, betting tools, and our mock draft simulator.